Hey, what's going on, guys? Honestly, it's game week 1, finished and finally over with. And a lot of you guys were excited that FPL is back. But the best advice I'm going to give you right now, and you don't even have to watch the rest of this video to find out, is delete the app and never look back. Just kidding. You're trapped for another 37 more game weeks to go. Game week 1 is officially over, and Haaland has proved that he's going to run away with the league. Before we get into the Haaland versus Kane debate this game week and my awful score this game week, and before we even talk about Jesus, Martinelli, Saka, Kulusevski running the Spurs game 4-1, and how Kane did F all in that game. Welcome to my Game Week 1 review stream and my FPL mini Game Week 2 guide to serve you guys better and to help improve your ranks. I know ranks don't really matter in Game Week 1, but as someone who's really competitive myself, I'm quite embarrassed. And I shouldn't be the one giving advice, but let's get down the road. We got a lot to dive into this video, so let's get the show on the road. Giving you a brief overview of the fixtures, and then we're going to talk about players who, for me, performed really well or who didn't perform in the fixtures. We'll go through my team as well, how my team performed, best players that stood out in my team, as well as best players that turned up in the game week overall. We're also going to mention game week 2 potential price rises and players who have already risen in price. As you already know, everybody and their mom transferred in Haaland for Kane. And a lot of people are still thinking, do I hold or do I sell Kane for the Chelsea fixture? Now, before we get into that, I'm also going to take a look at my early game week 2 plans. And this Thursday, I will be doing a team selection video, probably live, to help answer your questions as well in the evening. So I'll let you guys know that as well. And if you haven't already followed me on Twitter, my Twitter handle is MissMelina7. It's listed right below. So do make sure to follow me. Drop me your FPL questions, and I'll be more than glad to help you out. And before we get into this video, I just want to give a little disclaimer. Some of you guys probably are thinking to use an early wildcard or use a chip. With me, someone who likes to play strategically, I will say two things. Play your own game. If you feel like using a chip and you feel like it's going to be advantage to your mini leagues and to help you improve in your mini leagues or to help you gain points if you've had a poor game week 1, then maybe go all guns blazing and may your arrows be green, hopefully. But personally, I would say it's too early to use a chip. Maybe an early wild card in game week 3 or game week 4 sounds tasty. But for me right now, it's a hold on your chips, and don't use chips unless you feel like it's really necessary to, as well as taking hits. I was someone last season who took a lot of hits in my Fantasy Premier League. Yes, I did finish in the 70K range. It was my second season playing FPL, and I had a great season. But every season isn't going to be like that. You are going to have high and low game weeks. Be prepared for those red arrows and don't take it too hard on yourself. And don't stress yourself out trying to chase a rank or trying to chase positions in a mini league. This was only game week 1, so your rank is not season defining. It is going to change, obviously, and play your own game and have fun. Now we're going to go into the game week recap. So let me just share my screen. And we'll take you through game week 1, the fixtures, what worked, what didn't, who performed, who didn't, and also discussing what players stood out in that game week. So right away, we'll start with the first fixture of the game week, which was no other than Crystal Palace 0, Arsenal 2 away from home at Selhurst Park. Players that stood out for me was no other than the likes of Martinelli, and I know it was really frustrating when he missed the tap in the first half. Would have been a lot more, and he would have even got a bonus points. Ramsdale keeping a clean sheet. A lot of people went for Ederson, expensive keepers, Edison, Allison. Even Ward is an expensive keeper, but he looks like he's paying off so far for Leicester. Very cheap asset and good to have. But Ramsdale keeping those clean sheets so far, and hopefully he continues to do that and we continue to progress as a team. Being the gooner that I am proud of my Arsenal assets. Zinchenko's involvement in the game was great, and another asset at 4.5 million that for me feels like a cheat code in FPL is not Zinchenko. It's actually William Saliba, who was on loan in Marseille last season, and to me, he seems like the solid rock and glue of our defensive back line. Some people may argue Gabriel Magalhaes because of his height and ability to head the ball, and also that he's on set pieces and corners. For me, he's a more rash player and seems to be one of those players that are likely to get a red card or get a yellow card. Overall in the game, Bukayo Saka's second goal did end up going as the second goal for Arsenal did end up going down as an own goal from Guehi. And I think it went down as a Saka assist. And Zinchenko did get the assist for the Martinelli goal. So hats off to those of you that had Ramsdale, Zinchenko, and Bukayo Saka. Personally, Saka at 8 million seemed really expensive. In the first half, he wasn't as involved in the game or as direct as we know him to be. But he is a great player and someone that I had from Gameweek 1 until most of the season last season. This season, I actually decided to go with Gabriel Martinelli. I feel like he's getting a lot more involved in the game. One thing that frustrates me, though, and I said it in my match reaction, is he's a player that likes to do techie moves instead of just shooting when he has the opportunities to score. And that probably is going to frustrate you. And you might understand our feelings as an Arsenal fan if you don't support Arsenal. Moving on into Fulham 2-2. Who expected Liverpool to draw to Fulham? That was really like a surprising game for us. I think Klopp underestimated Fulham, and they went in there thinking this is an easy game, 3 points. They are going to be back at Anfield on the weekend, so I think they're out for blood. It is going to be an easy fixture for them as well. So, a lot of people are thinking, do I captain Salah or do I captain Haaland against Bournemouth? For me, it's a no-brainer, but I'll let you guys know my captaincy picks later on in this video when I show you guys my team, Game Week 2 team. And the player who had a lot of involvement this game was Darwin Núñez. Darwin Núñez was someone I personally was going to wait on. I wanted to see how he performs in the Premier League. I know he did well in the Liverpool's preseason, but preseason sometimes doesn't really show a true fixture or a true picture of how these players are going to perform. And Salah, a lot of people who captained him, our game weeks were saved with that. Commiserations for the people who captained Kane and believed in him to perform against Southampton. They got 4 goals, but he was involved in 0 of them, and that really let my team down as well. I didn't captain him in game week 1. However, it was really disappointing as someone you relied on and you thought it's going to be such an easy fixture for Tottenham, and Kane just didn't have a good game, didn't have a good start either. And it seems like Kulusevski might be the player to be one of the attacking assets to have, and possibly at the moment the only attacking asset to have, unless Tottenham have a lot better fixtures. They do have okay fixtures, but for me, Kulusevski at 8 million is someone I would rather have than. If you already have double Arsenal, I would take Kulusevski. Or if you have someone like Luis Diaz, who really frustrated me, he looked great. He looked promising. He was in all the right areas of the game. He had very good involvement, but he was just unlucky to not get on the score sheet. And I'll let you guys know if I've already made my transfers or what transfers I'm going to make. So stay tuned for that as well. Going on to the Fulham side, Mitrovic. Now, if you've seen me on FPL Casuals, I'm there weekly, so do check out FPL Casuals as well on YouTube. And we discussed on our Paper Talk show, when Mitrovic was promoted back to the Premier League, we said he was going to be a troll this season. And what does he do best? He trolls us with 2 goals. And Mitrovic is someone who has been highly transferred in this game week, as you guys already know. His price has probably increased with Martinelli subject to a price rise tomorrow, as well as Kulusevski price rise tonight as well. So if you didn't already bring him in, his price has now gone up. Mitrovic is someone a lot of people have transferred in, whether it's transferring out Jesus for Mitrovic or someone like Callum Wilson for Mitrovic. They're playing Wolves away, so it's not necessarily the easiest of fixtures, but I still think Mitrovic will get on the score sheet. That's just my predictions. Going into Bournemouth, Aston Villa. Aston Villa was really, really disappointing in that game. Steven Gerrard looks like he might be the first manager sacked even. It's a shame, it didn't seem like they had a game plan, and Bournemouth, nearly promoted, it seemed like they had a game plan and they executed it very well. But with Aston Villa assets, Mings, Ings, Cash. Some people even had Bailey. I have Bailey in my team because he's a cheap asset, but I don't think he didn't get any involvement. They couldn't even get on the score sheet. And who expected Bournemouth to score 2 goals to Aston Villa? Leeds to Wolves. So this is one I want to mention. Leeds, Harrison looks really good. Someone who, you might consider in your teams as a cheap asset. He did get the assist as well. Wolves, in terms of potence, Neto as well. I think Neto is a better pick. I think he's a good enabler for FPL assets, and he is at a good price point. He is still recovering from injury, but you guys know what he has to offer. Wang Yichen, last season, you guys know Wang offered a lot in FPL. He was in a lot of teams and constantly giving us points returns, which, and also I feel like Potence is someone who shouldn't go under the radar. I think Wolves don't necessarily have the greatest of fixtures, but they're not the worst either. So that might be one to watch as well. Newcastle and Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest, we'll start with them first. 0 goals, very unlucky. Newcastle seemed like they were a lot better of the team, and someone like Joe Willock even, or Callum Wilson. A lot of people, when they were looking for more affordable forwards, they went with Callum Wilson. And as you guys know, Callum Wilson last season, when he came back from injury, he was bagging goals right, left, and center and getting on the score sheet week in and week out. He was also not as a high price tag like the likes of premium striker assets. So you were able to use the other funds that you had saved in a midfield or big at the back in the defense. Now, Nottingham Forest do have Williams as well. A lot of people have him in our team because he's a cheap asset. He did look promising. He did look like he had a good game. It's a shame they just didn't perform, but it's only one game week. Things can change. And I do think Nottingham Forest still have something to prove in the Premier League. Tottenham 4, Southampton 0. So Southampton 1, sorry. So this game, what was frustrating wasn't the fact that Tottenham down the road scored four goals. What was frustrating to me was out of those 4 goals, not a single goal or assist from no other than Harry Kane. And a lot of us, like myself, went for Kane instead of Haaland because we thought Tottenham against Saints. Saints are very, very poor. The only player that stands out for Saints at the moment is James Ward-Prowse, who managed to get them on the score sheet and eliminate the Tottenham clean sheet. But Kulusevski, as I said earlier, looks like the 8 million pick that is a good attacking asset to have from Tottenham. And right now for game week 2, I feel like personally he might be worth as Son and Kane cover at the moment with the way he's been involved in their game so far. He looked like their best player on the pitch in that first half and closer to the second half as well against Southampton. Everton 0, Chelsea 1. This game was quite interesting and quite disappointing, contrary to what people have said on social media that, Chelsea lost all their defenders, they're not going to keep a clean sheet. It's interesting to see the involvement from Ben Chilwell. Good to see him back from injury. But as you guys saw on the eye test, he doesn't look like he's fully fit yet. And to me personally, it looks like he's going to take a little bit more time to fully get fit. And we know what Chilwell has to offer when he is fully fit. But someone who we all had in our teams, most of us at least, was Rhys James. And somehow Rhys James managed to get bonus points. I don't even know how, but I'm not going to question it because he did save my game week in that defensive range, whereas Trent did F all and really got put on the strings that day. A lot of you guys who had LFC double defenders, Trent or Robertson, might be thinking, do I let go of Robertson? Do I keep Trent? Is Robertson the better pick of Trent? But I think it was just one game week. I don't think you should sell him just yet. I think that's a wait and hold for me. Don't move too early on transfers and don't do knee-jerk reactions just because a lot of people are doing it, because that often screws up your game plan and you never know, it could haunt you with players you sell finally turning up and chipping in. Also, the LFC fixture is a great fixture against Crystal Palace at home, and I think because of the draw to Fulham, they were lucky to get away with a point, if I'm being honest. I think Fulham played really well, and I think Liverpool will be hungry at home, so hopefully they keep a clean sheet. Leicester-Brentford game. Players I want to mention here is James Maddison and Dewsbury Hall. Dewsbury Hall last season was a great cheap asset, and this season it's great to see him getting involvement and him getting a lot more minutes. I know at the start when I was making my FPL drafts for this season, I had Jamie Vardy up front, but for me this season it looks like James Maddison could be a great pick in midfield. I know his price tag isn't necessarily as promising and their fixtures aren't the greatest, but that's one to look out for me personally. Man United won, Brighton 2. And do I remind you that this was at Old Trafford at home? Didn't start Cristiano Ronaldo, and not even halftime they brought on Cristiano Ronaldo and still couldn't do anything. Very, very embarrassing performance by Man United. Fred and McTominay, atrocious. I don't know if it's because they don't have Martial or because it's Ten Hag's first season. They're still rebuilding. They're still trying to get signings over the line. And some of you guys might have gone with Lisandro Martinez, but he didn't offer anything. And Man United do not have the best fixtures moving forward. For me, Man United altogether is an avoid, avoid, avoid. Jadon Sancho is someone that if you're targeting when they have better fixtures, that's someone to have in your team. Or even Newcastle midfield, Bruno Guimaraes, or is one to watch. But like I said earlier, Newcastle do not have the greatest of fixtures. I would avoid personally. Brighton Gross. A lot of people transferred him in right away after those two goals scored last season as well. He did really do really well. And even Trossard, some people have in their team. Not so much of an expensive asset, but I still feel that he will give good returns. And now the game that we all should talk about is West Ham, Manchester City. West Ham 0, Man City 2. More importantly, Erling Haaland, welcome to the Premier League. And although I didn't have you in my team, I went for Harry Kane instead. Unfortunately, I think that's really hurt, and I did do the obvious move already for Kane to Haaland. Bournemouth at home, his first game at home. I really think Haaland and Kevin De Bruyne are going to shine and going to haul. I think it could be a damaging fixture for Bournemouth, and I don't think they're ready for what they're going to face on the weekend. A lot of you guys have gone for Ederson in goal because you wanted a permanent set and forget kind of keeper, and also for the clean sheet potential. And you could even say save points, but I'd say Ramsdale is more likely for save points and not as expensive as Ederson. Also, those of you guys that took Ederson, you might be now struggling with that third Man City asset because you've now blocked the potential of a third Man City asset, whether it's a midfielder or a defender, if you wanted to do double a City defense, depending on how your team's looking. So that's it for the fixtures recap this game week. It was pretty good week, because Arsenal played on the Friday. I was able to relax the rest of the weekend, and I didn't have to stress like Man United fans did this weekend, already fighting about Ten Hag and their future. But forget about them. We have to worry about us Gooners. We play Leicester next, so it'll be interesting to see the FPL assets perform there. If you already have the players I mentioned to look out for in your team, I'd say keep your cards close and keep it moving forward. Don't tinker too much with your teams, because oftentimes overthinking, you can end up bringing a player that won't even return, and you can end up selling a player that will haul this game week. Now we're going to go and discuss my game week 1 review. I'm really embarrassed about it, to be honest, as someone who had a really good rank last season. Well, I wouldn't say really good, but I had a decent rank last season, around 70K. It was my second season playing, and I was really proud of myself. I did take hits, but they did pay off, and we did have an extra free hit last season. We didn't have as much striker options because a lot of players were getting injured. However, let's go dive into my game week 1 recap. So this is my game week 1 recap. My team name is Catch Me If You Cante. I ended the week on 68 points, including bonus points for this week. I had Ramsdale in goal with 6 points. Thank you for the clean sheet, Ramsdale, and someone who I'm going to hold for this season, as I feel like he's an affordable keeper to have. His price is probably going to rise soon if he gets more clean sheets, and I'm happy to stick with him. I have Rhys James in the back, typical template defense. Rhys James, Cancelo, Trent, very disappointing performance. Unfortunately, he just couldn't perform, but I do think I'm going to hold on to him. I did not go double LFC defense with Robertson, and instead I went with Trippier. Trippier, I like the performance from him so far. I don't think he's a long-term asset, though, because of Newcastle's fixtures in the long-term run. So that's one to watch, and someone I'd probably change, possibly for an Arsenal defender, or someone like even a Brighton defender. An Arsenal defender, I'd probably think of Zinchenko, Saliba, or Gabriel. Even Ben White, you could argue that as well. I know a lot of people had Ben White on their bench for his position last game week. And Salah, captain at 24 points, saved my game week from misery. Martinelli was my pick of the week. Instead of going for Bukayo Saka, I went for Martinelli, cheaper asset, and did get a goal in, so that was great to see. Luis Diaz disappointed me. He did perform well, but it's a shame he didn't get on the score sheet. Bailey is a cheap asset. A lot of people have them in their team, along with Pereira, Archer, or Williams. Kane, I have sold him. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I have already made the move of Kane to Haaland. And I'm going to advise you guys, if you have Kane, stick to him if you haven't already made the transfer. If it's a free transfer, make the transfer. But if you have other areas of concern to address, do address those other areas first. Whether it's a defender or a midfield, make sure you address key priorities first. And don't burn a -4 transfer if you've already used your free transfer to bring in Haaland for Bournemouth. Unless you want to play your game that way, then go ahead. Gabriel Jesus, unlucky to get a goal against Crystal Palace the other day. I'm still keeping him. I still have faith in him and belief in him this game week. I know a lot of people game week 2 are going for Haaland, Nunes, and Mitrovic or even someone like Haaland, Nunes, and Kane. You know, there's a lot of possibilities you can do with different formations you have. So, that's one to watch. Mitrovic is a cheap forward, along with Wilson, and even Tony of Brentford could be a good differential. That's definitely one to watch. Also, Connor Cody has moved to Everton. That's someone that I'm really happy for this season. And if Everton perform well, who knows? He might be an FPL asset. We'll see how he does. It's way too early to say how he'll perform there, but I wish him the best of luck. On the bench, I had Iverson, Andreas, Williams, and Archer, pretty much a standard bench. And I ended the game week on 68 points. Not necessarily the greatest of game weeks. I was expecting around 80 to 90 points, but it is what it is. We'll keep it moving. It's only game week 1, and we still have 37 game weeks to go. If you had a terrible game week, don't take it too hard on yourself. Keep it moving and keep focused on your game week 2 plans. Your game week 1 rank doesn't define your entire season. Keep focused and keep going. Now, before I get into my game week 2 plans, let me know your thoughts of Kane versus Haaland. Who do you think you're going to have in your team for game week 2? And what would be your ultimate game week 2 team? For me personally, my ultimate game week 2 team this week, because of City's easy fixture at home, for me, I would highly recommend a double Man City defense, whether you're going Walker and Cancelo, Walker and Diaz, I'd recommend those. Or if you're going Stones and Walker, there's a lot of options there. And double City defense, I don't see Bournemouth getting anything out of Man City at home. And it's the first home game for Man City, so I'm sure they will be firing up over there. I'm keeping Ramsdale in goal. I highly recommend him too. As I said earlier, if you have Ederson, you are wasting a spot in the midfield or defense, or even a forward. If you can't afford Haaland, then you're struggling there when you need the likes of Kevin De Bruyne or Riyad Mahrez. Salah, Martinelli, and Kulusevski in midfield. Kulusevski against Chelsea is someone that I would keep. He looks like he's creating a lot more than Son and looked unreal in their first game against Southampton and one of their best players. I think he can cover as only one attacking asset that you need, and I think that's enough for game week 2. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Against Chelsea, I feel like personally that's enough for an attacking return. Front forward lineup, I would think of these forwards that I've named earlier. Jesus, Haaland, Mitrovic, or Darwin Núñez are my potential favorites for the forward options. Not because of a knee-jerk reaction for Haaland, but more because I know that Haaland is the real deal and is a good pick long-term. I know injuries happen to every player, but you can't avoid getting a player in your team because you're worried about injuries. Haaland, you know what he offers, and you know what he did last game week. I don't think it's just one game week. I think this guy is going to run away with the league, and Man City are looking very strong, stronger than last year as well. Mitrovic for 6.5 is a brilliant pick. You can't go wrong, and if you already have him, hold on to him. It's Wolves away. It's not going to look like a difficult fixture, and if you're going to think about a wild card, definitely one to get a good pick. But I'd prefer Darwin Núñez instead personally because of minutes, goal involvement as well, and the possibility of goals and assists. Keep in mind, Mitrovic last season did really well. So in the Premier League this season, I do expect him to do well as well. Not as well as he did in the Championship, of course, before he was promoted. but I'm looking forward to see what he brings into the Premier League in terms of goals and assists. As well as I mentioned earlier, according to Fantasy Football Fix, it's free to download. They will tell you subjective price rises and falls. Kulusevski's price rise has already happened tonight, so if you haven't got him in, you are going to be paying a bit more for him. And Gabriel Martinelli's price rise is subject to rise tomorrow. So if you are thinking of bringing in an Arsenal midfielder, and if you want someone cheaper, Gabriel Martinelli is your guy to have for the Leicester fixture at home. And it's great to monitor price rises and falls, but I wouldn't be too fixated on them because sometimes you might bring in a player just because you don't want to miss the price rise and you want to gain value, and then they end up not performing. So do make sure that whoever you're bringing in as a transfer is someone you feel that you have value in and you believe in. And last but not least, if you like the video, if you like the content I've done so far, and if you like what I discussed so far, do make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and check out my Twitter, MissMelina7. Let me know your Game Week 2 thoughts, your Game Week 1 review, how you did, and what do you think of Haaland or Kane? I've discussed my thoughts. I'll see you guys Thursday for a team selection, possibly a live stream or a pre-recorded. I'll let you guys know before Thursday, and let me know any questions you have of Game Week 2, any thoughts you have of players or team selection tips. I'll see you all in the next one. Adios.